The MMA world is in absolute shock right now. A legendary fighter just broke down in the cage. Fans are terrified for his future. And out of nowhere, Khabib Nurmagomedov himself sent a message that nobody saw coming. From career-ending defeats to emotional reactions worldwide, this story has everything. And trust me, it only gets crazier the deeper we go. When Khabib Nurmagomedov announced his retirement at UFC 254 back in 2020, nobody believed it would stick. Here was a fighter at the absolute peak of his powers, completely dominating Justin Gaethje, looking unstoppable. Most champions retire when they start losing, when their reflexes slow down, when younger fighters start catching up. But Khabib? He walked away while still crushing everyone in front of him. The reason wasn't about fighting ability. It was about something much deeper. Family. When his father and coach Abdulmanap passed away earlier that year, Khabib made a sacred promise to his mother. No more fighting without his father by his side. Think about that for a second. In a sport driven by money, fame, and ego, here was a man choosing family over everything else. Dana White threw record-breaking contracts at him. Fighters called him out daily on social media. Fans begged him to come back. But Khabib stayed quiet. That silence became the loudest statement in MMA history. It proved that some things are more important than championship belts. It showed a level of discipline that goes beyond anything we see inside the octagon. And that's exactly why his retirement feels so different from everyone else's. He didn't leave because he had to. He left because he chose to. That choice created a mystery that still haunts the lightweight division today. Fast forward to July 2025. After years of comeback speculation, Khabib finally put all rumors to rest. Speaking on The Hustle Show, he broke down exactly why stepping back into the cage isn't just unlikely, it's impossible. His explanation was brutally honest. Fighting at the championship level isn't about being in good shape or hitting pads occasionally. It requires months of savage preparation, hundreds of sparring rounds with dangerous opponents, 6 months minimum of pure dedication with zero distractions. At 37 years old, Khabib admitted something most fighters never will. He doesn't have that hunger anymore. The fire that drove him through grueling training camps has been replaced by different priorities: coaching, family, business ventures. Without that internal drive, he knows he can't step into the octagon at 100%. And for someone like Khabib, anything less than perfect preparation is unacceptable. This revelation hit the MMA world like a sledgehammer. Some fans respected his honesty and self-awareness. Others felt cheated out of dream matchups they'd been hoping for. But everyone finally had their answer.
The retirement is permanent. There will be no comeback fights, no exhibition matches, no one last dance. The book is closed. And Khabib wrote the final chapter himself. Now let's talk about the fighter everyone's worried about, Tony Ferguson. If you've been following MMA for any length of time, you know El Cucuy was once the most feared man in the lightweight division. This was a guy who threw elbows from impossible angles, rolled out of dangerous positions like a gymnast, and found ways to hurt opponents when he was getting hurt himself. Fighters had nightmares about facing Tony Ferguson. His 12-fight winning streak was legendary. Not just because of the victories, but how he got them. Coming back from being rocked to score knockouts. Surviving early trouble to lock in submissions. Every Tony Ferguson fight was an adventure where anything could happen. But fast forward to today, and we're watching a completely different fighter. At UFC Abu Dhabi, Michael Chiesa didn't just beat Tony, he dominated him. Forced him to tap in the first round like he was a struggling newcomer, not a former interim champion. That loss marked Tony's 8th straight defeat. Let me repeat that. 8 consecutive losses. That's the longest losing streak in UFC history for a fighter of his caliber. Social media went absolutely crazy after Tony's latest defeat. The reactions showed just how divided the MMA community really is about situations like this. One side was heartbroken. Longtime fans posted emotional messages begging Tony to retire. They couldn't bear watching their hero take more punishment. Comments like, "Please stop, we've seen enough," and "retire with dignity," flooded every MMA forum and social media platform. Others pointed fingers at the UFC itself. They argued that the promotion should have stepped in earlier, protecting Tony from himself. In their view, the company was using his name value to sell fights while ignoring the obvious signs that his body couldn't compete at this level anymore. Then came the darker side of internet culture. Memes mocking Tony's losing streak started spreading. Cruel jokes comparing him to fighters far below his skill level. It showed how quickly hero worship can turn into mockery in the social media age. But there was also a beautiful counter-movement. The hashtag #ThankYouTony began trending worldwide. Fans shared their favorite Ferguson moments, his war with Anthony Pettis, his comeback against Josh Thompson, his fearless energy in every single fight. When Khabib finally spoke about Tony's situation, his words shocked everyone. Instead of the trash talk or subtle digs people expected, he delivered pure class and respect. Speaking to UFC Europe, Khabib said something that stopped the MMA world in its tracks. "It's not a surprise for me because he is 40 years old. I just want to wish him all the best. He is truly one of the best to ever do it in the UFC. His life is just beginning." Think about the weight of those words. This came from the man who was scheduled to fight Tony 5 different times, the same person fans believed had unfinished business with Ferguson. Yet instead of gloating or making excuses about their canceled fights, Khabib showed pure compassion. The reaction online was immediate and overwhelming. Fans who weren't even Khabib supporters praised him for taking the high road. Comments poured in calling it real champion behavior and what respect looks like. This moment revealed something important about Khabib's character that goes beyond his fighting skills. He doesn't see former rivals as entertainment or opportunities for social media content. He sees them as fellow human beings who sacrifice their bodies for the sport. To understand why Khabib's message hits so hard, we need to talk about the most cursed fight in MMA history: Khabib vs. Tony Ferguson. This matchup was booked 5 separate times between 2015 and 2020. 5 times! And it never happened once. The first cancellation came in 2015 when Tony got injured. Then Khabib had issues, then more injuries on both sides. By 2020, when they were finally both healthy and ready, a global pandemic shut down the world. It was like the universe itself didn't want this fight to happen. This created something unique in combat sports, a super fight that lived entirely in our imagination. Normally, when 2 elite fighters are hyped up, the mystery gets solved once they step into the octagon. One wins, one loses, and we move on. But with Khabib and Tony, that question was never answered, and sometimes the fights we never see become bigger than the ones we do. Fans still argue endlessly about who would have won. Some believe Tony's unpredictable style could have broken Khabib's wrestling pressure. Others think Khabib would have dominated him just like everyone else. What makes it even more tragic is the timing. Both fighters were at their absolute peak during those years. Tony was on his legendary 12-fight streak, looking like he could beat anyone in the world. Khabib was steamrolling through contenders without breaking a sweat. A fight between them could have been one of the greatest in UFC history. Instead, it became the biggest what-if in the sport. The debate will rage on forever because there's no definitive answer, no video evidence of what would have happened. While Tony's career spirals downward, Khabib has found a new purpose that might be even more important than his fighting career: coaching the next generation of champions. His star pupil is Islam Makhachev, who now holds the UFC lightweight title. Many fans see Islam as Khabib 2.0, carrying on the legacy of Dagestani dominance. But it's not just about fighting style. Under Khabib's guidance, Islam has learned the discipline, strategy, and mental approach that made his coach undefeated. The coaching extends beyond just Islam, though. Khabib's cousins Umar and Usman Nurmagomedov are also rising stars under his wing. Umar is climbing fast in the bantamweight division, while Usman dominates over in Bellator. Together, they're creating what fans call the Dagestani dynasty. At UFC 311, we saw Khabib's coaching philosophy in action. He had 3 fighters competing on the same card. From the preliminary fights to the main event, his voice could be heard from the corner, giving specific instructions, motivating his athletes, and making real-time adjustments. Before that event, he posted on Instagram, "Hard work ahead tomorrow. My love for them is limitless. I will give everything I have." That message perfectly captures what drives Khabib now. It's not about building his own legacy anymore. It's about creating champions and carrying forward his father's vision. Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov always dreamed of building a fighting dynasty from Dagestan. Now, Khabib is making that dream reality. one fighter at a time. On the surface, MMA fans are excited about new champions and rising contenders. But underneath, there's a much deeper anxiety about the sport's future. Khabib's retirement has created a void that nobody seems able to fill. Every era of fighting has that one figure who feels truly unstoppable. In the past, it was Anderson Silva's Matrix-like striking, George St. Pierre's complete game, or John Jones's creative violence. For the lightweight division, that figure was Khabib Nurmagomedov. He carried an aura that went beyond normal championship confidence. Fighters didn't just prepare for Khabib, they seemed genuinely afraid of him. The way he broke opponents mentally before the fight even started was unlike anything we'd seen before. Now, without him in the division, everything feels wide open, but also incomplete. Islam Makhachev might be the current champion, but fans constantly compare him to Khabib instead of appreciating him as his own fighter. That shadow will always be there, making it harder for the new generation to establish their own identity. The anxiety gets worse when you look at what's happening to legends like Tony Ferguson. Watching someone who was once untouchable fall so dramatically reminds everyone how fragile greatness really is. One day you're on top of the world, the next day you're trending for all the wrong reasons. When you compare Khabib and Tony Ferguson's careers, you see two completely different approaches to the same sport. These contrasting paths teach us valuable lessons about fighting, life, and knowing when enough is enough. Khabib represents ultimate discipline and self-control. He recognized his limits, honored his commitments to family, and walked away while still on top. His retirement wasn't about declining skills or accumulated damage. It was about keeping promises and maintaining integrity.
This approach preserved his legacy perfectly. He left with an undefeated record, his health intact, and his reputation as the most dominant lightweight ever. Future generations will remember him as an unstoppable force who never gave opponents the satisfaction of beating him. Tony's journey shows the opposite extreme. His relentless toughness and refusal to quit made him a fan favorite during his prime. The willingness to keep fighting through injuries, adversity, and brutal wars was inspiring to watch. But that same toughness became a liability when his body couldn't keep up anymore. Instead of recognizing when to step away, Tony kept pushing forward, adding more damage to an already beaten-up frame. Now fans worry about his long-term health and cognitive function. Neither approach is necessarily right or wrong. They just show different priorities and mindsets. Khabib chose family and legacy preservation. Tony chose to give everything he had to the sport, even when it started taking more than it gave back. For current fighters, these two careers offer a roadmap of possibilities. You can go out on your shield like a warrior, or you can make strategic decisions about when to step away. Both paths have merit, but they lead to very different endings. These two stories also raise important questions about the UFC's role in protecting fighters from themselves. Should promotions step in when legendary fighters start declining? Or is it purely the athlete's decision when to retire? With Tony Ferguson, many fans argue that the UFC should have stopped booking him in difficult fights years ago. They see a company that was willing to use his name value to sell tickets while ignoring obvious signs that he couldn't compete at the highest level anymore. Others believe that fighters are adults who can make their own decisions. In this view, the UFC's job is to provide opportunities, not to play parent to grown men and women who chose a dangerous profession. The reality probably lies somewhere in between. Promotions have a financial interest in booking fights that fans want to see, but they also have some responsibility for fighter safety and long-term health. This becomes especially complicated with legends who still draw audiences despite declining skills. Their names sell pay-per-views and create storylines, even if the competitive element isn't there anymore. Moving forward, the MMA community needs to have serious conversations about protecting fighters from accumulated damage. This might mean mandatory retirement ages, stricter medical testing, or intervention when losing streaks become dangerous. What do you think?
Should Tony Ferguson retire, or does he have the right to keep fighting as long as he wants? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button and subscribe for more MMA analysis.